What we allow ourselves to get used to as normal is what makes our lives so expensive. And that is what I want to focus on today is all of the extras that a lot of people don't think are extras that I can live without. And that's why I can live on such a low income. I have built my early retirement financial security based on the fact that I feel like spending has trade offs. It has trade offs on what you can afford versus what you bring in, versus what your expenses are, versus what you think you have to be happy, and what you have to be content. So, in this video, I'm going to share with you some of my background, some of the reasons that I think some of these extras are just not necessary for me. And then I would love to hear your feedback on what you think is necessary in your life. I hope you enjoy this video. This is our only TV in the entire house. It is a 32-inch flat screen. It is not a smart TV. And we mainly replaced it with this flat screen because our younger children could hear a buzz that we could not hear because their ears are better. That's the only reason we upgraded. We did have an old model that had a big back end on it that was really heavy, like I grew up with. But I grew up without a lot of extras, so I'm fine going without a lot of extras, even still today. And I feel like those extras are where they really get you, and that's why it's hard to pay your monthly bills. This is an old TV stand I made out of an old sewing machine cabinet, and I keep my sewing boxes there on the bottom. So let's talk about all the extras today that cost us so much money and figure out which ones we can truly do without. I grew up with commercials, so for me, it is just mind boggling that people pay extra to be commercial free. That's when we got a snack, that's when we ran to the bathroom, that's when we stretched our legs, and just sitting there and then being able to pause the television anyway. For most anything that we watch, it just seems crazy to me that people pay extra for no commercials. And that's something that we don't do here. We don't pay extra to be commercial free. My parents didn't get a television until 1957, and my older brother was born that year. But to put this in perspective, my grandparents didn't even have electricity until 10 years before that. I grew up with three TV channels, CBS, ABC, and NBC. And once in a while, you could get PBS, which was Channel 8, and Sesame Street was on that. I loved watching Sesame Street. However, the news took priority in my house growing up, and Sesame Street always came on at the same time as the news. So very rarely did I get to see that. We had one television that we shared. It was primarily on in the evenings and for morning Saturday cartoons. And at midnight, all of the TV stations went off. That meant there was a rainbow picture on the TV with a high-pitched hum, and it stayed that way until around 5 or 6 in the morning when the channels came back on again. So we grew up not even having television 24 hours a day available. It cost too much to run the transmitters overnight, so the TV stations powered down, and they said advertisers did not want to pay for those time slots. I grew up with a lot of free entertainment, playing outside, reading, doing needlepoint, ironing for my mother, playing with my animals. I spent a big portion of my growing up years outside, but I didn't grow up with a lot of these things that we have today, and we got along just fine. We didn't even have a home phone until I was in junior high. And a few years ago, we shut off our home phone here because we were only getting sales calls. And I don't even know if they make answering machines anymore. But without that to screen your calls, it really didn't do us any good to even have a home phone. We had switched over to cell phones. I got my first one in 2001, long after everyone else. We got our Wi-Fi in 2010 because I had a daughter in college and she needed it to do assignments. We were always the last people to get any new items. We were the last to get cell phones, the last to get internet. I didn't want those things to hamper my way of living. I wanted my home to be peaceful, relaxing, and the idea of having computers and Wi-Fi and cell phones just made me feel like I was still at work, and I didn't want all of those things to encroach on my way of life. If you asked me today what were name brands of like purses or shoes or maybe even clothes, I wouldn't know. In fact, when we went to Vegas here in the last few months, we went to the Caesars Mall and we sat there and watched a lot of people shopping, and all of the stores were name brand. And I didn't recognize any of them. In fact, one of them was called Prada. And I told my husband, I think there's a new movie called The Devil Wears Prada. He said, that's actually the second one, and Prada is a brand. I said, really? I didn't even know what that meant. So, yeah, I've probably led a somewhat isolated life in that regard, but I haven't missed those things. I certainly don't need anything with a name brand on it to be happy or to feel fulfilled. Those things just steal my money when I want to do other things with my money. As you've seen in a lot of my videos, I don't have a fancy house. It has a somewhat small floor plan. It was built in around 1907, and I don't have anything fancy here. I haven't even updated to the lighter walls or any of those things because as long as it is still functional for me, I don't see a need to change a lot of those things that are just going to cost me extra money. I still have older furniture. I still wear a lot of the clothes that I've worn for years because as long as it's comfortable and it's clean and it's stain free, I can wear it almost anywhere. I don't have anybody checking the tag in the back of my clothes or judging me on how I dress. And that's one of the beautiful things about being retired is you don't have to worry about impressing others anymore. You don't have to worry about having those really nice clothes to go to work. You can just be comfortable. And I find that the more I dress in comfortable clothes, the more I don't want to dress up. We do a lot of free entertainment. In fact, we have a little cabin that is not very far here on the property, and we went up to it the other night and watched the meat eater shower after dark for quite a long time. And it was really enjoyable, and it was all free, relaxing, and peaceful. We also don't go out to eat a whole lot. It's a long way to go out to eat here. And when I was in town the other day, I went around this one area that had about 5 big restaurants. And it was around lunchtime. And would you believe every restaurant was completely packed? There was hardly a parking space in all of those restaurants. I'm not sure how people can afford to do that these days. Eating out is so expensive, and I'm not sure what trade-offs they have to do to make that happen. But I prefer to be debt free, and I prefer to make trade-offs that really bring me value. And a lot of times when I eat out, I don't feel like I get that much value from that anymore. Let me know how you feel about eating out. Most of the time, I would just rather avoid the hassle and stay home and eat something right out of my own kitchen. Staying behind the times can actually keep you financially stable. Not upgrading your phone, not purchasing that surround sound for your living room, maybe just moving your chairs a little bit closer and turning that TV up It works just the same. There's so many things that I am thankful for now that I've reached retirement that I didn't upgrade or I didn't get the bigger and better. And one of them is my house. It's a smaller floor plan. It's easier to clean and keep up. It's easier to walk around in. And a lot of times people just keep expanding and getting a larger home, more bathrooms, more bedrooms. Well, I have one bathroom, and that makes it a lot easier in retirement to keep up with. It also keeps it easier to keep everything stocked. I don't have to stock for multiple bathrooms. I don't have to have linens for multiple bedrooms. I have a very simple house, and it doesn't require a lot of my extra attention or extra money to keep it functionable. I don't buy a bunch of pre-made items. I don't buy specialty made cakes or cupcakes. I don't buy sandwiches or pre-made salads from the deli. I don't even go into the grocery store and use the salad bar because those things cost by the pound, and it can be really expensive to get out the door with a salad that you've created from that salad bar. I just prefer to live simply and to make my own as often as I possibly can. Making my own cake or cupcakes, making my own salad, all of those things save me money. And the convenience of having them already pre-made sometimes doesn't equal the quality. Because if you've ever picked out one of those sandwiches, sometimes it tastes like it was made days and days ago. The bread's a little on the soggy side, and I would much rather just make mine fresh than pay the extra prices to have something that is in a plastic container that has been pre-made. So many things have become normal that we spend our money on that we don't really think about it anymore. My husband said he worked at a place where every day everyone walked in with a coffee from the coffee shop. And would you believe when I grew up, there weren't any coffee shops. If there was a donut shop that served coffee or a breakfast restaurant that served coffee, that was the only place you were going to get coffee. Maybe a gas station if they had a coffee pot back then, but you didn't have coffee shops. And now they're on every single corner. And that's something that's cut into so many people's budgets that we think of as normal. Also, he said he watches staff walk across the parking lot to go eat out at lunch almost every single day. He packs his lunch faithfully. He does not eat out. And that's just something that people think of as normal now. And that is another thing that hugely cuts into what you bring home. We just don't think about this stuff anymore. When I grew up, there weren't any restaurants around. There's still not any out here within a 20-mile distance. And so we don't think about running out and grabbing something all the time because it's just not here. But when it is so convenient, people just don't think about it not being normal and about going back and just doing things from their own home to take with them to work. These things are the things that really cut into our budget, but we think of them as normal and then we run short on money. So think about how many of these things are normal in your day-to-day life that you didn't used to pay for when you were growing up. We didn't have the Wi-Fi bill, the cell phone bill. We didn't have the eating out at lunch bill. We didn't have the morning coffee bill. We didn't have any of those things. And that's why a lot of times our money went a lot farther. Yes, things cost less, but we didn't have all of that temptation. So if this is your first time hearing me on the internet here on YouTube, I just want to tell you, I'm old fashioned and a lot of my videos are just to get you thinking about your own situation. I'm not here to tell you what to spend your money on or what not to spend your money on. I just want to help you think about maybe where your money is going and whether or not you could have it to be spending it on things that matter most to you. That is what frugal living is all about. It's not about cutting out all of the things that are expensive, some of those things might hold great value for you. I still vacation, as many of you know, that holds great value for me. I still buy my family Christmas presents, birthday presents, and that brings great value to me. But some of these other things I can forego so that I have the money for the things that I want. Thank you for listening today. I hope you will give me a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you have not. Give me a hype if you enjoyed this video, and I hope you'll join me for another one.